Were you aware that 80% of businesses in Australia don't end up getting sold? Did you know that? Now, we're going to speak with Kerry Boulton, owner of the Exit Strategy Group, hosted by myself, Gary Ryan, and Alison Wheeler. You want to find out why you should have an exit strategy from the moment you start your business. Let's go. Thank you, Kerry, for joining Alison and myself. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
My pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
Now, lots of people in business haven't really thought too much about their exit strategy. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Exit Strategy Group, please?
Sure thing. Um, I started the business just over 10, nearly 12 years ago now, actually, when I suddenly realized that there was a gap in the market and no one was helping to educate small to medium business owners around exit because we're all human and we are going to leave our businesses one day. And having had the that sort of journey myself and the good fortune to learn that I needed an exit strategy many years ago, I really wanted to be able to give back in a way that helps small to medium business owners really get themselves ready and think about it not only from a business perspective but also from a personal readiness and financial readiness. It all goes together. Yeah.
And along those lines, would you have an example where a business has actually been on the ball and prepared for their exit and how that went versus the ones that come to you maybe after the horse has bolted?
Yeah, I guess sadly, some owners will do what I call ride it over the top. They've really seen the fantastic. They've had fantastic growth. They've had great profits out of the business, but they've never wanted to really part with their baby and their identity, which is so tied up with the business. Whereas if you can, you can really think about what your business has done for you and the the wealth that's actually tied in that business is quite often 70-80% of someone's net worth. So you need to be able to release that. So the sooner you can start to get yourself ready for that, the better you'll be. And as we know, Gary, 80% of the businesses that go on the market don't actually sell. Unfortunately, that's an unfortunate stat. We hear lots of great success stories about businesses that do sell, but we don't actually hear the ones that are sitting and languishing. We don't hear about them, but you only need to go onto any of the brokerage websites and see how many businesses are there that are for sale. Yeah.
And Kerry, what do you think is what's the main difference that makes a business sell and a business not sell? Because I mean, that's an alarming statistic for a business owner, right? To go, oh my gosh, this is my retirement strategy or whatever they've invested. You spoke about personal identity wrapped up in their business. So I guess there's two questions. Because I see, Gary and I see that all the time where the person's so invested into their whole identities, their business. They've lost sight of their goals, their
Yeah.
pathway, what they started it for, all of those things. And then it's very difficult, far more difficult for them to extract themselves out of that. So I guess the question is, one question would be around what do you think the importance is of a business owner attaching their identity to themselves and their goals as opposed to the business and the vehicle, because we do have to pivot, change, etc.
Yeah.
And then the second question would be, what do you think makes the difference between a business that does and doesn't sell?
Okay. For addressing the first question, I think that if you are if you've lost sight of your original goals, then you need to go back and revisit those. Okay, because life does overtake what happens, generally speaking. Things just happen around us and we get caught up in it. We get caught up in a mania, oh, I've got to grow the business, or we're working, daylight to dark, which is that's our norm. Then it becomes our norm. So we have to revisit that, put a mirror in front of it and say, is this what I really want to be doing for the rest of my life? Is my decision that I'm going to go out with my boots on, so to speak? In other words, carry me out in a box, okay? So if that's what you're going to do and that's your decision, then that's your decision. Recognize it. But, I don't think that that's probably the majority. The majority would really love to be able to move on to the next thing in terms of finance, money. They'd like to be able to extract the equity and the wealth that they've built up in the business. But they don't actually then think about what am I going to do next? So when I work with business owners, I spend a lot of time working on their personal side of personal readiness for exit, as well as financial readiness and the business readiness. Like, it's three legs of the stool. They all have to balance in order for there to be some real satisfaction as time goes on, and then create a new identity, create a new purpose in life. And I like to say I'm a walking, talking, living demonstration of what I preach, because I think I'm in my sixth reinvention now. So, over the journey, and yeah, it's about giving some thought to it and putting getting your priorities, working out your new goals in life. It can be everything. And when you do sell your business, you can decompress by all means. I always say, have fun, go and do what you want to do, have a trophy or something like that you've decided. And, depending on if your spouse is at home or your wife married, I married you for better or worse, but not for lunch. Let's find something to do, and in terms of the business, then addressing what is it that makes a business sellable as opposed to those that are just sitting on the shelf. It's about getting to understand the real drivers and what buyers will look for. And you also have to accept that you might need to be creative about your the way you actually sell the business as well. And you might have to help somebody buy into the business. And even if they're your family, you can often do that. But let's just say it's a third party. There are so many people out there now who are looking to buy businesses. Really, there's more buyers than there are sellers, believe it or not, at the moment, for good businesses. So the things that you need to have, and sort of eight key drivers from a business buyer's perspective is: number one, you've got to have good solid financials for your last 3 years. You don't have it, so you've got to be able to access that information quickly and be able to put your finger onto it straight away. A lot of smaller business owners run personal expenses through their books, which is all well and good, but you've got to be able to identify them and put them to one side, extract them, what we call normalizing those figures, so that we can work out what the business is truly trading at. So number one, have good financials. Number two, have you got any concentration of customers, or suppliers, or any key staff? If you do, how are you addressing those? If you're super reliant on one supplier, for instance, and they choose to cut off their supply to you, you're in strife. And likewise, if you have a customer that represents more than 20% of your business, you're in strife. Okay. And likewise, if you have one key employee or a couple of key employees who need to be who are a critical part of your business and need to be replaced, then they are really key. You've got to really work out how you're going to make them part of the ongoing business and keep them on. So that concentration area. The next one is your cash flow. So a lot of businesses suck up a lot of working capital. And so I find personally that cash flow is an area that aside from business owners looking at what's in the bank account, and a lot of small business owners think that that's the way you run your business, by looking at what's in your bank account, which is okay to a point, because if it's always positive, at least there's money there.
True.
But but at the same time, understand what working capital that you need in your business, because if someone comes in to buy the business, they're going to give you two payments. One will be whatever they're going to pay for the business. The other one, they're not going to give it to you. They're going to need to have. The other one is working capital. So how much of that do we need in order for the business to run? So let's do that. Next thing is your marketing. I mean, really, marketing is everything. What is it that differentiates your business from the next one? What are you actually doing? What have you created to put that moat around your business, which is an expression that Warren Buffett's often quoted for, which is, he said, I only invest in businesses that have a big wide moat around them, so that we really stand out from the crowd and our competitors don't really touch us at all. So what are we doing? How can we demonstrate it? We've got to have all our numbers. We've got to understand how customers come to us. Have we got all our stats around all of that? Most small businesses don't have that information at all. So that's another one that buyers will ask you for. Then, of course, it's customer satisfaction. How do you measure it? Are you doing regular surveys? You might have regular customers that keep coming back. Well, how do you know that? You've got to be able to substantiate that it's not just hearsay, or you have got them coming back, because they do come back. But let's see what else that you can substantiate that and give credibility around that customer satisfaction. I mean, it could even be something as simple as doing a Net Promoter Score. That is, I'm sure most of us have participated in doing one of those for bigger companies. And the same thing for your people, your staff. What's your staff satisfaction like? What are your people like? How can you demonstrate and prove that you have a really good culture in your business? So backing all of that up. The holy grail, if you can achieve it, is recurring revenue. So that is predictability of future income. And a buyer will pay more for a business that has recurring revenue. And even if it's only 25% of your total revenue, it's there as a base. And the future predictability of that revenue is key. It's that. And where am I up to now? I think, is that 7? Yep. One more. Owner dependence. And that is, the business needs to be able to run without you. So if you can have a holiday for at least a month and not have to direct the traffic, so to speak, in your business, that's a really good thing. Because owner dependency is a deal breaker. So systems and processes and having all of that documented so that you are not involved in the business. You've got to have it so that the business can run without you. And so all of that adds up to being able, transferability. Can this business be run by someone else? How could we transfer it? I mean, there's a lot more behind the scenes, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
But those are key drivers that if you pay some attention to that and address them, then you will certainly be standing out from the crowd. That's for sure. Yeah.
And that's a main reason why, I've seen a lot of the material that you share on social media, Kerry, and also in your workshops about the importance of preparing for your exit as soon as you possibly can, like literally from the day one of your business. Now, all of those 8 categories that you've just shared with us, audience, I hope you've taken some notes, by the way, because this is the sort of information that's going to make you run a great business, right? You'll have an excellent business if you're able to tick off all of these 8. I suspect many small to medium businesses will be lucky to tick one.
Yeah.
And if anything, it might be having some awareness of their cash flow.
Yes.
But as you said earlier, because you mentioned that they are looking at the bank account. Although I've got to tell you, it does surprise me how many small business owners actually don't know how much money is even in their bank account.
Mm.
So they're actually at 0 out of 8 there. Now you mentioned write it over the top at the start.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that what you mean by that is that people have maybe been addressing these 8 factors, and their business at that particular, there's a point in time where their business could actually get a very high valuation for people who are actually looking to buy businesses.
Mm.
But the visual I got is they ride over the top, and actually these factors are maybe not so good when they're planning when they think they're going to exit later down the track.
That's right. They actually, you could have, you could see that there's plenty of blue sky. You've got a really good business that's chugging along nicely, making some really nice profits for you. And you think, okay, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to keep going for a little while, even though somebody may have already come in and made an approach to you to start to make an offer. And they think it's going to be better down the track. So they've literally ridden it over the top. And it's by the time they find that they really want to get out, it's too late. They're not, well, it may not be too late if they've got a really good business, but they certainly won't get the same sort of valuation that they may have had by leaving some room for the next person to take it to the next level, if there's a growth market out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where there's various leverage buyout models, for example, and maybe if that business owner is thinking, look, I still want to be in the business for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Leverage buyout could enable them to be in with good income coming through, plus they've actually optimized the valuation of the business for the person that's buying it. Everyone actually ends up winning.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that if you can achieve that, that is ideal. So, because I'm talking to an owner at the moment who's been approached, and if you saw the list of due diligence information that is required, you'd be a little exasperated. But anyway, that's what's got to happen. And instead of when somebody comes to you like that, instead of going, oh, I'm going to put all this together, start preparing it well ahead of time. So basically all you have to do is sort of update some of your numbers, but everything else is there and you can just put your finger on it, because speed makes a difference as well in that sort of scenario. But yes, absolutely. If you can do that. And what led me to that was that he would love to stay on he wants to stay on in the business, and work maybe part-time for a few years whilst, training the next group of people through it. So that's a scenario. There are pros and cons, of course, in that, because when you've been your own boss for a while, sometimes it's not that easy to go back and start sort of working for somebody else. But just the same, it's, that sort of leverage buyout is definitely on the cards. And I see it in family businesses a lot. Actually, I have another client as well who's selling their business to to 2 of his kids. And it's not a gift. They've actually got to buy the business. So, but they're buying it in a leveraged way, that their share of the profits over time, and they'll eventually become full owners of the business. So that is such a valid way of being able to transact, that's for sure. Yeah.
There's many ways, right? And Kerry, it's very clear that you're extremely passionate about what you do, and also extremely knowledgeable, which is amazing. What drives you? Why do you do what you do?
Okay. So I really do it for the reason that I said right at the very beginning, because I just saw that there were so many business owners who didn't have this sort of knowledge and information. And you know what? Over my journey, and I think you may well have covered some of this in the introduction, that over my lifetime, I have been so fortunate to have had access to some wonderful mentors. And, you know, I'm from the School of Hard Knocks. I started with nothing. And guess what? I'm going with nothing too. But Die with Zero, that book, anybody who's read that? That's a really good one. Anyway, I think that for me, it's about giving back. And, you know, I am these days in a really fortunate position that if I chose not to work, that'd be fine. I'd be very comfortable. But I choose to do what I do because I really want to give back, and I really want to be able to help small business in particular understand what's involved. So I have come from doing a management buyout, talk about leverage, division of a public company. And I got this out because I still have it. I think I've shown this to you before, Gary. This is my book that I found when I was trying to buy this business at the original business that I had. It's called Business Plans That Win Dollars, and it was written by a couple of professors from MIT in Boston. And in that book, I learned that I needed to have an exit strategy. Now, that was in 1987. Okay, yeah, I'm old. Yeah. So 1987 that was. And, you can see I've still got my Post-it notes in the book. It's just that if you're an investor in your business as much as an external investor could be in your business. So you have to treat yourself the way you would treat an external investor. And you're the most important one. So you want to know how you're going to get your money out. Anyway, that's the reason I decided to do what I'm doing. Yeah. Just to get back.
I'm interested with the example that you shared, and it doesn't have to be specific to that example about someone just coming and knocking on the door saying, hey, I want to talk to you about buying your business, because that might be a bit of a unicorn moment for some people, right? And people might lie in bed as business owners and say, gee, it'd be great if someone came to buy my business. I think one of the key messages that you're sharing is be prepared for that unicorn moment by addressing each of these 8 key elements.
Yeah.
And have you got an example of maybe a surprising situation where because someone had just thought, you know what, I'm going to follow your advice, I am going to be prepared, then the knock on the door actually came, and they were able to actually get a great valuation?
So yeah, me. Actually, my husband and I in our real estate business. Now, the backstory on that is that it was part of a franchise. And so if you're in a franchise in particular, which is a really good example of being systemized, because you have to follow the systems that are there. So even though you have your own imprint on what it is that you're doing, you still need to follow all of the systems, and all the systems are in place. So every business needs to operate as if it's a franchise, even if it's just a franchise of one. However, that's exactly what happened to us. We had someone who came along was back in 2007 and knocked on the door and said, I want to buy the business. And the valuation was through the roof. So we said, thank you. Yes. Bye. We're out of here. Thank you. Yeah. But, the most famous of those is Kerry Packer, who sold Channel 9 to Alan Bond. And he made the point back then, every business should be ready for sale, no matter what, because you never know when the Alan Bond is going to come along in your lifetime. And he had his. So he made that point all those years ago. And of course, Alan Bond paid $1 billion for the Channel 9 network back then. And Kerry bought it back 3 years later for about a quarter of the price. So I think that's the real lesson. And we've had that personally. We have had that. And I can see that this particular client that I'm currently talking to, he's not quite as ready as he needs to be, but he's in a unique position, and he's been recognised for that. So somebody's come knocking on the door, which is great. Yeah.
What would be the greatest resistance you see from business owners to be exit ready?
I think it's about facing the whole identity loss. And it's the word exit to some extent, but I don't know how else you can really express it, because you are going to leave your business one day. And although it's starting to become a little bit more acceptable, I think sometimes in the early days, people thought of it as being actually dying, when in fact we're not talking about that at all. Of course, we're talking about being really organized and pragmatic and being ready to leave your business and extract what you can from it, but all of those other things. So I think it's very much around my identity. Who am I when I'm no longer my business? But also, what am I going to do next? And I have sat in a room with two gentlemen, business partners, and one of them was really afraid of what he was going to do next, because he wasn't prepared to sit around and just look at four walls and wither and die. He needed to do something, but his work was getting beyond him. So it just takes a little bit of guidance, and I use some really good tools to help people to think about those sorts of things. What are we going to do? And I have a great example. My uncle, who in his heyday had 14 different businesses, nearly 500 staff. And when I sold my first business, the freight business, in 1996, I remember we were visiting and having a lovely family lunch, and he said, "Kerry, I wish I'd done what you've just done 10 years ago." And then it took him another 10 years to actually extract himself from all of the different businesses. And I did say to him at the time, "What are you going to do now?" And he said, "Oh, it'll be fantastic. Going to play golf 3 days a week. I will go and do a bit more travel and be able to have lunch with my mates, etc., etc." And that was great for about a year. And then, unfortunately, he was in clinical depression. And of course, that took the toll on the family. They got through it. There's a happy ending to the story. Did get through it, but and then his grandchildren were the benefit of his attention, which was great. Just the same. They were sort of late 10, 12-year-olds or something back then. So they loved it. It was great. But you know what? That was just, I guess, for spending some time to actually face that. And it's not about facing your own mortality. It's about facing what's next. What's my next reinvention? You could be a serial volunteer like I've been for 30 years down at the local sports club. Do all sorts of different things. There are so many community groups. Be a mentor to others, and and yes, travel. Do that. Go ahead and do that. And yes, spend more time with your families. But we need to give some thought to that. I take people through a little exercise that ask how many hours you spend at the moment that you spend at work doing what you're doing. 9 times out of 10, I'm getting 50 or 60 at least, And then we go through, well, think about now what else you're going to do. How long is that going to take? And then we go through and count up all the hours. And usually I've got about 25 hours still left,
Yeah.
So, okay, so now what are we going to do? Let's have a bit of a think about that, Yeah.
So amazing, Kerry. Now, I think our audience would definitely pick up that you are the expert's expert on this topic of exit strategies, particularly as they relate to small and medium enterprises. What are some upcoming opportunities where people might be able to see you speak live and or access some of your online material?
Yeah, sure. I am speaking. I'm a keynote speaker at the Business Exit Summit that's coming up in Sydney on the 9th and 10th of September, so very soon, which I'm really keen. I'm thrilled to be able to do that, and I'll be on a panel. And there's a whole range of other speakers there as well. I have my website, which is theexitstrategygroup.com.au. And there's a lot of information on that as well, that people can book in a consult. They can get my books. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Promote the books.
Promote the books.
So I have 2 books. One is The Uncensored Truth About Exit Strategies. Hang on, I'll get them in the shot here. And the other one is $1 Million Payday. You can just jump on the website and order a book, and I'll send them both to you, and give you the opportunity as well to do a quick value assessment. When I send them out, I send it out with the information that people can jump in on. So that's probably the best ways. I'm on LinkedIn, of course, as well. That's probably my main, my main social media channel. But I do have my new online program coming up that is starting on the 22nd of October, which is Exit Ready Freedom. That's what I said earlier, wasn't it?
That's exactly right. Exit Ready Freedom program.
Yes.
Available from the 22nd of October. But
Yeah.
you want people to apply.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
that
That'll be apply online, which you'll be able to do through my website, and I'll start my social media promotions will be starting in the next week. So people can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, the usual suspects. Not X. That's all. I'm not on X.
But the promotions will be well and truly underway by the time some folk are actually catching up on this episode that Alison and I are hosting here today. So, folks, we'll make sure all of those links and opportunities are in the show notes so that you'll be able to reach out and connect with Kerry, potentially in Sydney for the conference, and or through her books, or through her website, or through the opportunity for the online course that's starting on the 22nd of October. So we're going to make sure all of those links are in the show notes. Alison, have you got a question for Kerry?
I do. I have a final question before we wrap up. What, obviously, as we're all branded 10X, we know you've been in the community as well. So what I would love to know, Kerry, is what does 10X mean to you?
So 10X means being able to multiply the results of what you're doing 10 times. Yeah. And not only the results, but it's also your own motivation. I think that's the other thing as well, which I really love. So I've spent some time with Gary, which has been terrific. And I said before, I'm not a spring chicken, and I've done lots and lots over the years. But the bottom line is that you've never learned everything, and you're always learning. And the more you can learn, the more you invest in yourself, and particularly with programs like 10X and the coaching that you do, the better you'll be, no matter who you are and no matter what stage that you're at in life, quite frankly.
Fantastic. That is a great answer. And I love it. It is. It's about understanding that there is always more to learn, there's always more to grow, and that exponential growth, and how important it is to stay on that track. That's what keeps us moving forward and alive. Gary, I will hand it back over to you to tie a bow on our podcast today.
Thanks, Alison. And Kerry, we both want to thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
We absolutely love it, and we know we could go for hours, I think, talking on this topic, because you know so much. Again, folks, make sure you reach out and don't just sit there and say, "Oh, that sounds like that should be something I do." Take action, because we're all about action from the 10X world. On that point, if you want to take advantage of the Scale Fast program, folks, make sure you go to businessgrowthdownunder.com and check out our opportunities to work with Alison and myself for our group program that we do. You'll find that the investment for that is unbelievable, for the opportunity to learn so much with well over 100 hours of content ready for you to go on the 10X mindset, 10X marketing, 10X sales, and 10X follow-up. Make sure you go to businessgrowthdownunder.com. Folks, we look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.